Hi, I'm Walter, I'm the Dutch mentor, and welcome back to the Smart Performance podcast. After so many things happening in life, right? But that's why we are imperfectly perfect, because we say it how it is and we don't edit things out. Again, SMART stands for self-care, mindful growth, adaptive problem solving, rhythmic operation, building that T for thriving community, and of course, P for performance. Today, we're going to have a very interesting conversation with Regina. And remember, this is actionable, right? Things you can start doing today to live a better life, even this evening. We don't have to wait until tomorrow. Burnout is real, right? In the industry that I'm in, 67% of the people have identified as living at or near burnout. One thing that I always remind people, time is the only thing that you will never get back, and that you are in charge of your own life. So Regina has written a book about this. She's certainly a master at this. We're going to dive a little deeper into what that looks like to build your journey. Regina, thank you very much for being on the show today, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Walter. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, I'd be very happy to co-inspire with you today. I am the CEO of Transform Your Performance, originally from Germany, as you can probably still hear in my accent. Lived and worked on several continents in several different language zones. So I can work with my clients in 4 languages. Transform Your Performance is a coaching, speaking, and training business. And what else can I share with you? I've owned businesses in Brazil and Argentina in the past. My current business is based in New York City. And I have worked both with people and mostly leaders in corporate and business owners.
Very interesting background. I love the fact that you really have explored the world by living on different continents, and I'm sure that gives you great perspectives on habits and behaviors that are deeply culturally based itself. So let's dive into create a problem statement for me. What is the problem that you have identified? Why is it important that we actually try to come up with solutions around the problem?
Yeah, so many leaders are very focused on delivering results. Numbers are always a big thing, right? But internally, they don't really feel fulfilled, or even sometimes they don't even feel they're making an impact, and they oftentimes also feel a flatness and like they're not really in charge of their lives, or they have lost their freedom. Even also business owners, what happens is a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, we created businesses because we wanted to experience more freedom. But then we build a cage for ourselves, right? Because then we do nothing but work. And oftentimes a part of it is that we are very hesitant to delegate, or we don't know how to delegate effectively. And another part of it is that we just forget about ourselves and what initially really inspired us to create this business or project. So it's really important to sit down and get back to those roots and remember that, and really take a moment every now and then to become fully present with what drives us, what gives us joy, and what we could potentially do less of that drains us.
Yeah, I love what you say there, that people live to work in order to create life after work, but they often get caught up in that, and it really doesn't happen, right? It is that one luxury vacation doesn't solve everyday problems, and it is something that we need to be very mindful about. I've been fortunate; I've had an interesting career in healthcare, and as a technician, as a leader, as an executive. And today I get to live that on my terms, right? I get to do coaching and mentorship, and some of it pro bono, because that fills my heart. But also get to enjoy flying helicopters and airplanes and do the things every day. So it's a combination of those things. So one thing that I see all of the time, and it's part of your problem statement, is that I work 60 to 70 hours a week. And I'm a true believer that you don't need to work 60 to 70 hours a week to be successful, right? But how can somebody, now that we understand the problems there, how can somebody first baseline what it is that they do, and then start thinking about some solutions that gives them the time back to the things that really matter in life, which is faith, family, fun, and values.
Well, you said it. A lot of people think when they work longer hours, it's automatically more results or higher results. And that's not really true. Actually, some of us function very differently. So it's also important to figure out how you function as a human being. There are people who can power through 12 hours without any problems. And then there are other people who are not built that way, who really need their breaks. Also, there are people who flourish when they are with other people and working in that environment all day long. And other people, like me, for example, I'm an ambivert and I have done a lot of soul searching and self discovery work and self awareness work. I have found out that for me, it's important to be with people for a certain period of time, but then I need the me time. Then I need to really come back to myself and do some work on my own, right? So I'm a great team worker for a certain period of time, and then I need to come back to okay, now I'm going to produce in my own way, okay, and and then when I get interrupted, I also know this about myself. Now, when I'm in my creative flow, I can actually get angry. So I need to, I need to figure out all these things so that I can also interact with others in a way that makes sense to them. So it's very, very important to move through that process of self-awareness and self-leadership to know what's good for you and what works for you, right? Another well, in relation to that, I would say it's very, very important to, from time to time, pause and come into presence. So first of all, into the present moment so that you can collect yourself. And then from there, from that place, reflect on, okay, what is it that gives me joy right now and what doesn't? What can I do less of that drains me? And then, you work on that solution. Because a lot of people, and you asked for that problem, right? They do a lot of work that drains them. And it's not really what we're supposed to do. We're all good at different things, and that's for a reason. So some things can be delegated, some things we can get better at. Yes, sure. I mean, everybody needs communication skills and interpersonal skills without any doubt. But then there are other skills that we don't necessarily have to work on because other people do them better. Now, that's one thing. And then also on the flip side, what gives me joy? So really make those lists, sit down and create lists and don't get up before you have written everything down. Really sit down and do everything that you do on a weekly basis. And then figure out, what can be delegated. Even if you don't have a team, you can, there are people who work on a contract basis, right? So there's a lot of things that aren't even necessary that we are doing just because we think that the more hours we work, the more productive we are. And that's just not true. That is a huge myth, and we
It
are
is.
educated into it.
Yeah, and really the two roots to that, right? One is that our own behaviors that we think, especially alpha driven personalities, they think they have to do it themselves. They can't trust anybody else. So learning the art of delegation is critically important. And if you really honestly sit down and look at the work that you do, how much of the work is non-value adding is incredible. And then the question is, if it is non-value adding, you should do away with it. If it is value adding, do I need to do this? And that's the tough question for a lot of people, because that means I need to learn to let go and allow somebody else to go out and do it. And really, the most creative companies in the world allow people to go out and not only be bold and be brave, but also allow them to fail. And again, that is something that people need to embrace. So often I say, listen, we are juggling 6 balls up in the air, right? And 5 out of rubber, one is made out of glass. Family, the things that are closest to you are the things that you cannot afford to drop in the process itself. And I think that's where you talk about, what is important in life. So to clearly document that and having, a deeper understanding of that. So once you have done this exercise, right? What is the next step that they should take, in your opinion, and make this actionable that people can think about, right? They have the list, they have the things in front of them now, they have hopefully done some awareness work on why they're doing this and what kind of personality they have. What is the next step after that?
Well, first of all, It depends a little bit on each individual situation, but let's just assume you have a team, or at least a small team, right, that you can delegate to. Then, of course, it's important, if you haven't done that already, to get to know your team really well, because how would you delegate something if you don't know your team? That's not a good idea. So you really want to know what to delegate to who. And you need to be able to trust your team. So that also requires that knowledge. But on the other hand, also you need to have conversations that are substantial enough so that you can trust them. And by the way, we always expect our teams to trust us, and we know we have to build trust with our teams, but trust is a two-way street. It's not just going in one direction. So you gotta at some point take that leap and say, okay, I am going to trust my team. I know they're going to do it in their way, which is not necessarily my way always, right? Because if you don't just want to delegate individual tasks and micromanage them, which then again is not really going to result in saving time, then you really want to be very mindful about how you interact with your team. And you mentioned failure, right? And then also teach them that failure is feedback, that it's that they're not going to be judged, that they can also come back to you and ask, they if they have questions, why not, right? So they it's really about building that relationship first, your team, bless you, as a result, as a basis for that delegation. There's so much more to delegation, and I've written entire articles also on my LinkedIn newsletter, because it's a very complex topic, but it starts with getting to know your team and with that building trust in both directions. And then I think, also oftentimes we think as leaders, how do I get more out of my team? But what if we'd also ask, what in my leadership approach needs to shift so performance feels more aligned and sustainable for my team and more natural, right? So I think enthusiasm is an important word for me here, because if there's no enthusiasm in a team, the team will not be truly engaged. So what can you share with your team in terms of information that makes them more enthusiastic? Are you sharing enough information of the why they are doing what they're doing and about the bigger picture, right?
Yep. I love that. I mean, really, what you're describing is a formula that I use often is, high performance is a function of trust, bilateral, non-negotiable, and engagement. And engagement needs to be meaningful. The meaningfulness comes out of really getting to know your people, and look and understand their intrinsic values, right? What makes them tick? And then that is really kind of like unlocking the magical powers. But of course, the one constant is that you need to learn to let go. And that is something that is so. Talk a little bit more. Shift now that they have gone through the exercise, self-awareness. They've really understand the team. So what should they do with their time that they get back? Because we all know an entrepreneur, if you give him 20 hours back, he or she will start just creating more things, right? What is the real value add they can do for themselves with that time that they gain back?
Well, first of all, if they didn't have already a solid self-care concept, then create one. A lot of people have morning routines, but that's not always the case. And plus, it doesn't necessarily actually have to be a huge morning routine. To me, for example, I love to be out in the evening and do my physical activities in the evenings. In the morning, I might do something like that too, but shorter, right? Because I'm somebody who wants to get to work and get stuff done in the morning, but I still need a short routine that sets me up properly. And then I want to do the more intense activities in the evening, because it's also how I sleep better. I just have gone through that self-awareness process, and that's something you got to do to find out what's best for you. I don't believe in recipes that are generalized for everybody.
Great.
And then also focus on your self-leadership. That implies your own life. That implies how you lead yourself, whether you're in charge of your life, but it also reflects back directly. It shapes directly how your team operates, because they will see you, you know. And if you we always talk about role models, but oftentimes we forget that perception element in it. So I love to work with leaders because once they have this down, they create a ripple effect on their teams, right? So when leaders recalibrate internally and they align themselves, then that shines through their presence. And their teams, as they interact with them, they will naturally shift without needing to control that part. I have observed that quite a bit, you know. I've also had team members congratulate their leaders after going through a coaching process because they just get that energy that is different. It's not necessarily even something super concrete that they see, but it's the energy changes. And we must remember that it's important to optimize our energy because our energy flows into everything we say, we think, we do, you know, and even we feel. So it's not talked enough about in business, I believe. Your energy and your self-care, they go hand in hand, of course, you know?
Well, I think that is how you show up is critically
Yeah.
important. And I have had many times that people I've worked with over a period of time that they get their, the next, employee survey back, and that there is a real shift in how they are perceived. After, of course, the sustainability is really the most critical piece of the puzzle. Regina, we can talk about this for hours because it's an important topic. But again, I always stay focused on getting the important message across, and I think we have hit on all the notes that is important. Tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, my website is transformyourperformance.com. That's also where you find links to my podcast, it's called Rise to Lead, to my books, to all my social links. So I think that's probably the best place to go, transformyourperformance.com. And if you'd like, you could also check out my LinkedIn newsletter where I share leadership wisdom every single week.
Excellent, very good. And give us a parting thought or action item for the audience.
Well, it's not always about doing less necessarily either. We've talked about, not doing more, not doing too much, but it's not necessarily always about doing less either. So really figure out, what it is for you. It's not about slowing down for everybody either. But what it always is about realigning how you lead yourself while you continue to lead others. So that's that internal alignment that you want to really put some focus on.
Finding that right balance in life, or finding that one thing that makes everything just a little bit easier as well. Regina, thank you very much for joining me today in the show. I really, really appreciate your valuable insights. And I hope that your travels will be vast and wide, and maybe space is next, right? If you haven't been there yet. To the audience, again, it is most meaningful if you take something from our conversation and you start making that list of things that make you happy, or seek some mentorship about how you can shift from doing to leading, how you can learn how to communicate more effectively and delegate. Go to my website at dutchmentor.com, and there you have a great resource of a leadership assessment, or your DNA of a leader. Will come out with a 9 to 12 page report in a 30-day cycle of what it is that you can do on a day-to-day basis that is truly actionable. And again, thank you, Regina, for joining me today in conversation. Have a wonderful day. Auf Wiedersehen. Au revoir.
Thank you so much for having me on. And thanks to everyone listening. I'm really grateful for you all. And au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye, hasta la vista y hasta luego.
Thank you.